Do you struggle with being assertive, whether in your personal or professional life? If so, this video is for you. Stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Jessica from Jessica Adele Consulting Services. In this segment today, we will look at understanding what assertive communication is and what it is not. Your level of assertiveness in navigating your own world really impacts on your mental health, your well-being, and how you relate to others in relationships. And this segment will then look at an example of practicing an assertive communication illustration. We'll then look at understanding what are the consequences of not being assertive and what are the benefits of practicing this skill. And also how to develop assertiveness in relationships in your own personal development journey. Towards the end, I'll briefly touch up on practicing assertiveness in dealing with toxic relationships, and I'll offer a few tips for you to apply practicing those skills. All right then, let's get right into it. So what is assertive communication? It is a way to communicate your feelings and needs and point of view to another person in a way that's clear, honest, and direct, while respecting the rights of the other person. It's basically communicating in a firm manner and facing adversity with poise, especially when you're dealing with harsh situations or harsh contexts and challenging people and personalities and their behaviors. Communicating assertively helps you minimize conflict while essentially sticking up for yourself and standing up for yourself by managing your own anger and other emotions that may arise in an interaction to really foster developing more positive relationship with people, whether that's with your friends, your family members, and other people around you. So as we know, conflict and disagreement with people's opinion is a commonality. People have their own views, their own belief systems, and their own behaviors. So this disagreement can really be mitigated when we deal with those individuals assertively. Often people find it the hardest to be assertive with their loved ones and in their intimate friendships, their intimate relationships, and also professionally. Being assertive is a learned and a practiced skill, and I cannot stress that enough. It is practice and practice. It's like working on building a muscle with one of the goals in mind, building your self-esteem, and the other benefits can have building your confidence and protecting yourself essentially. The goal of that is to be able to clearly in interaction state to people how you feel and in a very honest and respectful manner set a boundary and a limit to that person on what you can do and what you won't do, and what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate. And also having the strength to walk away from relationships that don't serve you and relationships that are unhealthy and toxic. So essentially it's the ability to be able to relate to other people without the need to wear a mask or a facade, by being able to down the track reveal your authentic self in a safe manner, and which is the key to building really healthy foundations of relationships, especially after you've been dealing with the more challenging type of personalities. So with that, let's look at exploring what assertiveness is not. Assertiveness is not aggressive or passive-aggressive communication. Also, it's not when you end up making excuses for someone's behavior when they're mistreating you or trying to justify their behavior, saying that, oh, it wasn't that bad, or look, he was having a rough day and that's okay, that's why he really hit me and he name-called me repeatedly. That's fine. So being a doormat is not being assertiveness essentially. And also another example is a live example of an aggressive manner could be where, say you've been waiting for half an hour, I'm standing in the line at a checkout counter and someone else pushes right in front of you. An aggressive response to that would be, Oi, who the hell do you think you are jumping ahead of the rest of us? So that's aggressive communication. An assertive response to that instead would be, excuse me, there's actually a line here, and it will be better if you walk back to the end of the line and wait like the rest of us. So I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, well, this is easy to say rehearsed. I get that. But being able to manage your emotions is a skill. And this latter approach in saying something more assertively and more respectfully yet firm will really, chances here are that the person that you're dealing with in this situation is likely to go walk and stand back at the end of the queue and even apologize to you, saying, oh, I didn't really know that I jumped in, and they'd actually move to the back end rather than having that person getting into a physical or a verbal altercation with you if you're using more of the aggressive tone and that aggressive behavior with them. Okay, so another example that is common is of aggressive behavior. Say you, in your intimate relationship, you're withholding love or sex from your partner, and you haven't really explained to them why you're doing that, but you're doing that as more a manipulative tactic to get something until you get your way in a particular situation. It's actually considered passive aggressive behavior to some extent if you're not verbalizing why you feel, why you need, or why you're withholding love or sex from that person. And then going on to the other extreme, and instead in public, say when you're seated in a family situation or with friends, you then make a remark or a mean comment about your partner in public, venting out your sex life and what you think is going on wrong, and doing that in a public forum, basically rather than having the courage to sit and have a one-on-one frank discussion with the person directly. So if you're doing that in public, that actually looks like you don't have the courage to say that to the person directly in a private manner. So this is where you're not being assertive and you're deliberately applying a passive aggressive communication tactic by airing your dirty laundry out there in public. Okay, if you have a look at the screen in front of you, there's an example of an I statement, assertive communication, that you can apply. The objective of that is to be assertive rather than to be accusing. So at the top you can see that asterisk is with all due respect. You can apply that when you say, if you're dealing with an authority figure, say a boss or a police officer. You can add that to the beginning of what you're about to say. So the approach would be something on the lines of, I feel, and then you express the feeling that you're feeling. And then you express what are the actions or the words that the person said that affected you. And because then you put forward the reason for why that behavior or that action upsets you. And then in the last line you see, I would like, and then you offer a solution of what you want. So the last line essentially is to be solution oriented, and to really explain to the other person not just how you're feeling, but offering a solution to how that would remedy it for you moving forward in the future, so that the person knows what they can do for you to address the problem. Okay, let's apply this to an example in a household context, and we're filling in the blanks. So it will go something like that. I feel frustrated when you leave the dishes on the table after dinner. So there you express what is the behavior and what's the action that the person's doing that's affecting you. Because I don't like the mess. You not liking the mess is the reason for why that upsets you. And then you're putting forward the solution of what you want from that person. I would like for you to remove and wash up the dishes after eating and before you head into the TV room. So I'll just repeat it again. I feel frustrated when you leave the dishes on the table after having dinner because I don't like the mess. I would like for you to remove and wash up the dishes after eating and before you head into the TV room. So essentially, I know this is a bit wordy and lengthy, but this is the assertiveness approach rather than you uncontrollably acting on your emotion and blurting out loud and saying to the other person, bloody hell, you're such a pig. So if you end up saying that, which we're all human beings and we feel our emotions then on the spot, but if you're just directly saying to the person, you're such a pig, you didn't even get the chance. Firstly, you offended the person. You're being aggressive and you didn't even get the chance to express. The person doesn't understand your feelings around what happened and what triggered you, and you don't really offer a solution there. That's why it's a practice skill, because if you've been usually just reacting on your emotions and not responding, then it is only natural to feel inclined to just blurt out the emotions or intensity of what you're experiencing. And then that will leave the other person in the interaction feeling confused for why you're calling him or her a pig. Okay, so we clearly stated that assertiveness is not passive or aggressive communication. Passive communication is essentially when you don't stick up for yourself, when you don't stand up for yourself, or speak up or express your point of view because you may feel that the other person, that your view doesn't matter, or your view is not worthy, or maybe you want to maintain the peace in a situation. So basically, passive communication is putting other people's needs and opinions before your own and allowing yourself to be ignored or unheard and even being bullied. It's sort of like when you're conversing and then also not just staying silent, but you undermine your own opinions and your worth by also saying words to the effect of, so belittling words or minimizing words to the effect of saying, adding words to a sentence, saying something like, oh, only if you don't mind that, or for instance, you really want something, but then you say to the end of it, oh, only if you don't mind that, or that's okay. It doesn't really matter that much to me. And something really, really matters to you, and you just add those words tagging into that sentence. So when you're enabling mistreatments from others or other forms of unacceptable behaviors, you're essentially enabling and allowing someone to interfere with your self-esteem and your self-worth. And what happens there over the course of time, a lot of emotions will build up and energetic imbalances, whether that's from resentments, anger, bitterness, all of that will build up. It will reside in your body if it's not coming out. And you'll be experiencing these emotions, these prolonged emotions. And that could lead to symptoms of extreme resentfulness when you're dealing with other people as well, to fatigue, to money problems, to health issues, to genuine insecurity in who you are, and to social anxiety and other common symptoms. So perhaps if you want to understand it, you can describe assertiveness as being the midway between passive and aggressive communication. You can look at it that way. Okay, so when you're developing assertiveness in relationships, as I said, it's a practice skill. It's about owning your feelings in a particular situation and being honest with the other person about that, rather than pointing fingers to the other person, accusing them and blaming them that it's you who's the problem, or using those attacking tones of voice. So it is about, assertiveness is telling it like it is, respectfully, but also letting go of how the other person will perceive you or react to you with their feelings and what you're saying. So the objective here is not for you to try also to control or to manipulate how that person's going to receive you or react to you. It's not about worrying about that. It's mainly about you asserting what you have to say and putting forward a solution. Now then, if the other person ends up receiving you in anger or lashes out at you or name calls you or threatens you physically in any way, then it is your job in that context to walk away and not to tolerate that abusive behavior or those words from another person. So you walking away is being assertive as well in that interaction. Some of the benefits of practicing assertiveness over time, you'll be able to learn how to trust your gut feelings and instincts and really listen to what's happening in your body and the sensations that are coming up for you. Example, say you're in an interaction and your stomach muscles start to tense up because of a person's glance or their actions or their words or their behavior, their non-verbal communication or their verbal communication, and that has the effect of making you feel uncomfortable, then you'll be able to pick that up more readily and easily. You'll be able to pick up the red flags in a person's character and either assert your point or leave that interaction. Another benefit is that you'll experience more harmony in yourself, more internal peace, because you won't be bothered in engaging in power struggles, essentially. So you'll start knowing that there's no point in engaging in dead end power struggles, because you know that a leopard doesn't change its spot overnight or at all. When you accept that people don't change much, and you certainly can't be the one to change their behavior, then you have that level of acceptance, and then over time you become less disappointed with people and you walk away from relationships and interactions that no longer serve you. Of course, this is an ongoing process in life, but at least you're no longer in a situation where you're in a place of denial around a particular interaction that's manifesting in your life. And you come to a place where you sort of accept the sad truth that human beings can be disappointing, can be very disappointing, and you need to state something about that and remove yourself or extricate yourself when it's an unhealthy interaction. So assertiveness also helps you to learn not to project your values, your beliefs, and your ideals of how you view the world and what you see and how you think people should act and behave in a certain manner according to your belief system. So it gives you that freedom, and that's essentially, when you're practicing that, that's the objective of what you're getting to here. Another really strong benefit is being assertive with yourself and other people. It helps you be very certain and confident in who you are, and really defining your own borders, your own values, your own belief systems. So you come to accept that, yeah, people can have their other opinions about you. They can voice it, and that's their opinions, and that's okay. It's not a fact, it's their opinion. And you can respond to that if you choose to, but essentially it's not aggravating you to the extent that it's building up as a resentment or festering in your body. So being assertive really gives you that liberation to be your own independent self, and you'll be able to relish in the fact that you're an independent person. Okay, what about when you're dealing with someone that's very toxic or unhealthy? The message that I'm trying to get here is assertiveness is about taking action. It's about practicing and applying that muscle in different environments, in different contexts, to help you build your self-esteem and your confidence and walk away from these unhealthy relationships. You are always, in your interactions, teaching people how you want to be treated. When you enforce a consequence or a boundary to another person, it is your responsibility to communicate that and stick to that, so that others know what you need out of a relationship or a particular situation. If you don't set boundaries with people, then you will always attract those unhealthy types of personalities that are manipulative, emotionally abusive type of people, like the narcissist or the psychopath. And if you're interested in those types of personalities, have a look at my other videos as well. So that type of personality, that toxic personality, the predator, will always seek out the prey. And unfortunately, if you're that little prey who's wounded and you still haven't healed your wounds, and you're not working on being assertive, then the predator will smell that a million miles away and they'll come after you to attack. So the point that I always make is when you're dealing with a narcissist, that's the most challenging thing, where you really have to assert firm boundaries. Say, even when you're saying a no, you repeat your no, that's a clear no to the other person, and not engaging in any people-pleasing or codependent behaviors. And I know it's hard, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist or a psychopath, because you really have to work on really asserting and voicing yourself to that person, who can be quite intimidating and aggressive, and letting go of that relationship. Even if you really care for the person, you're gonna have to walk away. And it does get easier when you practice being assertive. So it's very, very, very and only normal for you to feel feelings around anxiety and fear in the early phases of practicing being assertive in a communication with, say, that type of personality, because you might be feeling a sense of rejection, or maybe if you dig in, there's, I don't know, childhood issues, or something around your self-esteem or self-confidence, which requires attention. So the point that I'm making, it is difficult at the beginning, but once you've dealt with a narcissist in a very assertive manner, and you've done that repeatedly over time, then if you've dealt with that, anything else is easy for you in life. So I'm cautious of the time. Let's wrap up with the last point of leaving you with some tips for practicing assertiveness with other people. So make sure you watch your tone of voice. How you say what you say is just as important as what you're saying. So making sure you're paying attention to the tone of voice. And also, when you're asserting your point of view to another person, make sure you give that person the opportunity to speak. So give that person a space to explain themselves. Make sure that you're practicing active listening as well. Also, watch your body language, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist or a bully. Try to look them right in the eye when you're speaking, rather than looking at the floor when you're trying to assert your perspective. And try as much as you can to maintain your composure and try to stay calm. Or maybe perhaps before you're rehearsing what you're going to say with that particular personality, try to write up what you're going to say and then practice it by looking at the mirror, or maybe perhaps standing in a Wonder Woman pose. That one always works for me, standing in a Wonder Woman pose and then rehearsing what you're going to say to the narcissist. So that sort of gives you a bit of a more confidence before you go into that interaction. Also, try to minimize and reduce using any hyperboles in language, like avoid using any words of you're always late, you're always rude, or you never care for me. Those extreme words can be very triggering for the other person to even begin to hear you, even when you're trying to be assertive. Also, when you're using the I assertive statement that we just described above, and you're trying to clarify to the person your perspective, try to stick to the facts rather than putting your judgments on the situation or trying to label it. So as much as you can, stick to the facts and avoid labeling or judging the person by, if they say repeat the same behavior, by you going out and saying, oh look, you've done a terrible job again, or yesterday night you repeated the same thing after apologizing. How am I supposed to trust you? So I suppose here the point is, people make mistakes and it's going to take a while for the other person to receive what you're asking of them. So try to manage you arcing up around if the person does make the same mistake again. Okay, so then when it goes to dealing with, say, the narcissist or the sociopath, make sure you're reflecting on the interaction and write up your I statements before you go and face that person. And also really consider between yourself, journal on that, and consider with yourself, what are the stories that you keep telling yourself? What are your standards, the acceptable standards that you have for yourself in relationships? What are the things that you will tolerate from people? What are the things that you won't tolerate from people? You really have to get clear around that, make a list maybe, and try to get in touch with yourself. And I know that's really hard, especially when you're going, say, through a domestic violence situation. But it's very, very important for you to have that awareness and be able to reflect before you go and assert yourself. So really listening to how you feel, journaling helps that. Say you reflected and you feel in a particular context that you feel you're being taken advantage of, then trust that feeling. Trust that feeling that you're being taken advantage of, and then work on practicing your assertive statement to that person. So try to rehearse as much as you can. Say you can rehearse that with a friend if you find it intimidating, or if you don't like looking at the mirror and practicing. As I said, I use sometimes Wonder Woman when I'm at work. If I'm about to go into a context where I feel intimidated by the personalities in the room, I apply the warrior goddess Wonder Woman Xena type of energy. That works for me. You could use that, or try to think of another alter ego that puts you in a place, in a mindset where you feel really empowered before you go into that interaction. Essentially visualizing that would help boost your confidence, and you can liken yourself to that personality and that trait, and it really helps you more show up in that interaction and speak up from a place of confidence. Also make sure before you go into the interaction, you're very calm and you're clear about what you're going to say, so that the emotions don't take over. Because one of the main goals of being assertive is to be able to manage your emotions, your intense emotions around a situation. And last but not least, practice, practice, and keep on practicing. And also make sure that you give yourself a pat on the back when you do come out of an interaction, a challenging interaction, and you were being assertive, whether that's in an intimate partner situation with a friend or in a work context. Make sure you back yourself up and acknowledge what you just did. Because at the end of the day, this is a personal development thing, and you're not going to have people there applauding you for it. Unless if you have a coach, that's great. Then the coach will be there to back you up. Otherwise, make sure you're giving yourself credit. All right, and with that, I'll end this session today. I have a little pamphlet that I found from businessphrases.net. This is a pretty cool infographic around the key assertive communication skills. And it has a few boxes where you can use it as a little bit of a checklist or a guide to maybe keep in your pocket or in your room, and just revisit what was mentioned here in this video today. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure you like or subscribe to let me know that you did find this video of value. And also, if you're interested in me or touching base, my contact details are below, and also feel free to either reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram at empowered_warrior. So you can follow me there. And with that, stay strong, stay brave, and I wish you a beautiful day. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.